The past has a way of looking better the further we get from it. We remember the warmth, the laughter, the moments that made us feel something deep. But do we remember it in its entirety? Or do we just craft a version that fits the story we want to tell ourselves? Welcome back to Echoes and Realities, the space where thoughts, emotions, and raw truth take center stage. I'm Orion, your host, someone who thinks way too much and speaks on the things most people usually leave unsaid. And today, we're diving into a question that I think haunts all of us at some point in our lives. Why do we romanticize the past? Nostalgia is a hell of a thing. It makes us look back and see the world through this soft, golden glow, like an old photograph that gets prettier the more time passes. But the thing about nostalgia, it lies. Think about it. When you look back at your childhood, your teenage years, or even just a few years ago, do you remember the struggles, the doubts, the nights where you questioned everything? Probably not as clearly as the good times. That's because our brains are basically wired to filter out the unnecessary pain and focus on the highlights. Let me paint a picture for you guys. There's someone sitting in their room late at night, scrolling through old messages from an ex. At one point, they swore they'd never go back, that they were done. But now, they're rereading those late night conversations, remembering the way that person used to make them laugh, the way they felt understood. And suddenly, they're questioning everything. Maybe it wasn't so bad. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I still love them. But what they don't remember at that moment is the silence. The times they felt invisible. The times they cried themselves to sleep, wondering if they were even wanted. The thing about nostalgia is that it's selective. It remembers the highlight reel, not the full story. And the worst part, sometimes we believe it. Have you ever found yourself longing for a time that, if you're being brutally honest about it, wasn't actually that great? Maybe it was a relationship, a phase of life, or a place you used to be. You look back and suddenly it seems perfect. But was it? Let's try something. Think about a time in your life that you miss. Got it? Alright, now be honest with yourself. What else was happening during that time? Were you really as happy as you remember? Or are you just filtering out the bad parts that you don't want to remember? Let's say someone misses high school. They think, man, those were the good days. No responsibilities, just fun with friends. But what about the stress? The pressure to fit in? The anxiety about what the future may hold for you? Does that person really miss high school? Or do they miss the feeling of being young and carefree? There's a difference if you look at it from a different angle. Maybe you miss an old friend, someone you haven't talked to in years. You tell yourself you should reach out, that they were so important to you, that the two of you were really close. But do you miss them? Or do you miss the version of them that's in your head, in your memories? The person they used to be, or maybe the person you wish they were. That's when nostalgia stops being a comfort and starts being a ghost. A presence that lingers, whispering in your ear that things were better before, that you'll never feel that way again. But that's one of nostalgia's many lies. Because the past wasn't better. It was just different. So how do we deal with this? How do we stop holding on to an idealized, glorified past while still appreciating what it gave us? First, we have to see it clearly. The good, the bad, and everything in between. Instead of just remembering the highs, remember the rest of it. Remember the fights, the doubts, all the parts that hurt. Because once you do, you realize something. The past wasn't perfect. It never was. And that means the future doesn't have to compete with a fantasy. Secondly, understand that missing something doesn't mean you need it back. You can love a memory without trying to relive it. You can cherish what was without letting it stop you from creating something new. Imagine someone moves away from their hometown. At first, they couldn't wait to leave. It was a small town with the same people, and nothing ever changed. But now, years later, they find themselves missing it. They miss the familiarity, the childhood spots, the feeling of knowing every street. They start thinking to themselves, maybe I should go back. Maybe that's where I was happiest. But if they actually went back, they'd see the reality of everything. The town is the same, but they aren't. The person who felt at home there doesn't exist anymore. The past isn't a place you can return to. It's a version of you that no longer fits. And finally, remind yourself that the best moments aren't just behind you. You are still living, still growing, and still creating memories that one day you might look back on with the same wistful fondness. But you don't have to wait until it's gone to appreciate it. I'll leave you all with this. If you can go back and relive one moment exactly as it was, no changes, no edits, would you? And if not, why do you keep chasing that moment? Think about it. Sit with it. And then maybe start focusing on the moments you're living right now. This has been Echoes and Realities. Until next time, Orion, signing off.